The Marvel Cinematic Universe is now 5 movies into its third phase, which will come to a close in 2019 with the 4th as yet untitled Avengers movie. After that, all we know about Phase 4 is that it'll have a sequel to Spider-Man Homecoming and a third Guardians of the Galaxy movie. But what other movies could be included in that 4th chapter? In this video, we'll take a look at some ideas about that based on things seen in the MCU so far, and things we know are coming in the remainder of Phase 3. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. It's the best way to keep up to date with all our great new videos. Before we get started, can you count how many Skrulls secretly invade this video as it plays out? Stick around until the end of the video to find out if you counted correctly. So we're now 17 movies into the Marvel Cinematic Universe and 5 movies into its third phase. Phase 3 is the biggest to date and will have 10 movies in total, as opposed to the 6 that both Phase 1 and Phase 2 had. Although it's impossible to be certain, the movies we've seen so far in the MCU have certainly hinted towards what might be coming in Phase 4. We will, of course, be able to make more accurate predictions about it once Phase 3 is finished, assuming we haven't already been told a movie schedule for Phase 4 by then anyway. But we can at least theorize about it for now. For starters, with the Skrulls confirmed to be the villains of the upcoming 2019 Captain Marvel movie, there's every chance that it'll set up a secret invasion movie in Phase 4. Captain Marvel will be set in the 1990s, which will mean the Skrulls, who are of course shape-shifting aliens, will have had almost 3 full decades to have infiltrated Earth's society and formulate their complex, subversive invasion of the planet. The fact that 2017's Thor Ragnarok ended with Thor planning on relocating Asgard to Earth also hinted towards a secret invasion movie. This is because in the 2008 Secret Invasion comic book arc, the Earth-based Asgard was one of the Skrulls' main targets for invasion. Basically, we're almost certain that Secret Invasion is coming to the MCU, and given that it will have been happening since the 90s, there's every chance that a lot of what we've witnessed so far in the MCU wasn't what it seemed. Basically, any established character could turn out to be a Skrull in disguise. Of course, with the Skrulls on their way and the Kree already existing in the MCU, there's also a very good chance that we could see a movie adaptation of the early 1970s Kree-Skull War story arc. That arc heavily incorporated the Avengers and came to an end when the Illuminati got involved, and it would be an ideal opportunity to introduce the long overdue secret group to the MCU. The relocation of Asgard and Thor Ragnarok also hinted towards the possibility of another epic comic book arc being adapted into a movie going forward in the MCU. This time we're referring to 2010 Siege. Siege depicted Loki manipulating Norman Osborn into leading an all-out assault on Asgard when it was located within the United States. It was one of the main consequences of Asgard's relocation, and the fact that said relocation is happening in the MCU would certainly suggest that a Siege movie is in the pipeline for Phase 4. Moreover, the fact that Loki is heading to Earth would allow for his manipulation of Osborn, especially given that Spider-Man's supporting characters are available for portrayal in the MCU, given that Marvel Studios and Sony struck the deal that allowed the Webbed Wonder to appear from 2016 onwards. While that may not be the movie's title in the same way that Planet Hulk was loosely adapted as a subplot in the 3rd Thor installment, World War Hulk could be the subplot of, say, an Avengers movie going forward in Phase 4. In the comics, World War Hulk followed Planet Hulk, with the big green guy taking his wrath out on Earth after he was banished into space. In the MCU, the Hulk actively chose to leave Earth, but he still has reason to dislike his home planet, and that was certainly made clear in Thor Ragnarok. Hulk was hesitant about returning to Earth following his stint on Sakaar, as he's under the impression that the people there dislike him. If this continues once he returns, he may resent ever coming back and wage war on the planet in a bout of uncontrollable rage. Moreover, in the World War Hulk comic book arc, the Hulk was joined by a group known as the Warbound. That included Korg and Meek, both of whom are headed back to Earth with him at the end of Thor Ragnarok. One thing's for sure, a World War Hulk plot in the MCU would go down incredibly well with fans of the franchise. Now for a theory about a solo origin movie for Phase 4. And it's with regards to none other than Richard Rider, aka Nova. It's strongly expected that one of Thanos' first ports of call in the Avengers Infinity War movie will be Xandar, home of the Nova Corps. It's anticipated that the Mad Titan will forcibly take the Infinity Stone known as the Orb and destroy the planet with it before heading to Earth. In the comics, Richard Rider became Nova when Roman Day, the last surviving member of the Nova Corps, who's played by John C. Reilly in the MCU, was dying, and he selected Rider as his successor. It's theorized that the same thing will happen in Phase 4 of the MCU. The MCU is going to become more cosmic in general going forward, so there are bound to be some major space-based stories in Phase 4. There's a good reason to believe that an adaptation of the 2006 Annihilation will be one of them. The story saw an armada of warships known as the Annihilation Wave, led by the evil Annihilus, entering the universe inhabited by Marvel's heroes and destroying or taking over everything in its path. Planets, entire star systems, you name it. The story featured existing MCU entities like Thanos, the Guardians of the Galaxy, Nebula, and the Clint Prison, as well as characters we expect to appear in the franchise going forward, such as Nova and Quasar. Annihilation could itself be the name of a movie, or it could be the plot of the third Guardians of the Galaxy installment. That would be a great way to upgrade on the threat of ego from Volume 2. On a somewhat related note, a movie about the origin story of the Annihilators super team could happen in Phase 4. The Annihilators were assembled to deter galactic wars and came together after a string of galactic-level threats occurred, including the Annihilation Wave. The team included characters like Gladiator and Icon, as well as Cosmo, who we've already seen in the MCU. There was also Beta Ray Bill, who we know exists in the MCU thanks to a reference in Thor Ragnarok. After the introductions of the Avengers and the Guardians of the Galaxy in the franchise, the introduction of a cosmic team with superior powers to them both, which the Annihilators undoubtedly possess, seems like the natural next step for the MCU to take. Moving on, the imminent arrival of Brie Larson's Captain Marvel in the MCU would suggest that Marvel Studios are looking to include more female characters in the franchise, as would the introduction of strong female characters like Valkyrie, Scarlet Witch, Gamora, and Nebula. With all of that in mind, a Lady Liberators origin movie could be just around the corner. A number of characters who have been part of the Lady Liberators team in the comic books already exist in the franchise. The aforementioned Valkyrie and Scarlet Witch, the Inhuman Medusa, Black Widow, and Wasp, for example. And recent reports have suggested that a number of the MCU's female stars have pitched the idea of a movie focusing on a team comprised solely of characters of the fairer sex. This is definitely something that could and should happen sooner rather than later, not least because it would be awesome, but mainly because it would be refreshing, and the MCU needs something unique to keep it interesting. It's also worth noting that it would be incredibly naive to believe that Infinity War and its sequel will be the last we ever see of the Infinity Gauntlet or Thanos, given the massive build-up to them both. While Thanos may be defeated, it's very unlikely that he'll be permanently killed off, and while the Mad Titan will be relieved of the Infinity Stones, they're likely to be relocated rather than destroyed, which could ultimately see the introduction of the Infinity Watch to the MCU. With that in mind, both Thanos and the Infinity Stones are almost certain to be involved in some way in Phase 4 of the MCU. And two comic book stories that could definitely be adapted are 1992's The Infinity War, which is a different story than the one being adapted in Avengers Infinity War, and 1993's The Infinity Crusade. Both stories saw Adam Warlock, who we know is coming to the MCU thanks to his introduction in one of the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 mid-credit scenes, taking possession of the Infinity Gauntlet and using it to unleash his good and evil sides, with mixed results. Each story would allow Thanos to return, and they'd both make absolutely awesome live-action movies. 2010's The Thanos Imperative story arc also has a great chance of being adapted into a movie in Phase 4. The story saw Thanos resurrected and subsequently imprisoned by the Guardians of the Galaxy, with whom he had to then kind of team up with in order to save the universe. This would make Thanos into a Loki type figure in the MCU, as he would be hard to trust but would have redemptive qualities. It's something we can really see Marvel Studios pushing, especially if Brolin's Mad Titan proves to be as awesome as popular as we expect him to be. Of course, in the event that Disney purchases Fox, the likes of the Fantastic Four, the Silver Surfer, Doctor Doom, Galactus, Deadpool, and mutants could be introduced to the MCU. That could lead to any number of movies we wouldn't otherwise get in Phase 4. The most likely movie to expect in that scenario would be a Fantastic Four origin movie. In spite of the fact that Fox have already attempted that on 2 occasions, superhero fans have been crying out for Marvel's first family to get the live-action adaptation they so obviously deserve, and bringing them into the MCU in Phase 4 would be most welcome as a result. Other MCU movies that would suddenly become possible in that scenario include the likes of House of M, Deadpool Kills the Marvel Universe, Unthinkable, The Trial of Galactus, and of course Avengers vs. X-Men. That would be absolutely incredible. Those are considerably less realistic options for Phase 4 though. And that's the end of our video. Did you enjoy it? Those are just some theories regarding potential stories for the MCU Phase 4. What stories do you think will be adapted into live action in the MCU's 4th chapter? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more great videos like this one. And the number of Skrulls that appeared in the video was... We hope you had fun counting. Bye for now.